Hello and welcome back to another video by Vazquez-Mackay. That's me. Welcome. So today what I want to share with you is how to stretch a canvas. For a lot of you, you potentially might buy your canvas in the store, which is a really good option, really convenient option. However, as your practice as a painter starts to evolve, you might find that you want some larger or some conventional dimensions. Additionally, you get to save quite a bit of money by building your own. So on the one hand, you gain control. On the other hand, you get to save some money. And when you save money, you produce a whole lot more because you're not so conscious about how much materials are costing you. So I'm going to show you in this video, not so much different surfaces that we can work on. That's going to be a different video. But I'm going to show you how to stretch canvas, or it could be a linen, over top of a wooden canvas stretcher. So here we have my stretcher that I'm going to stretch the canvas over top of. This is a wooden stretcher that I made years ago just by cutting down sheets of plywood and creating this 90-degree with a bevel on it. But like I said, in another video, we'll talk a little bit further about different surfaces that you can work on. And then I have some canvas. Now it's pretty heavy. I think it's 22-ounce canvas. And I buy it by the roll. So it's a nice thick one because usually I work pretty large. And yeah, I noticed there's a few tears in it, but otherwise it's going to be a good size for me. So we can see it's really quite large. So I'm going to start by roughing it in, cutting it down a little bit. And I have to be mindful that when I cut it down, that I need these edges to be able to wrap around. So having something like this, because I have a 2-inch profile, with the 2-inch profile, I want another at least probably 2 inches on there. So this is going to be a good amount of space for me where it's going to be able to wrap around. Looking at my top here, it's a little bit shy. And when you're working with a piece of canvas this big, sometimes it's worth it just to sort of slowly work towards your ideal size instead of cutting down too much and not having enough canvas and having to go back to your roll and cut a whole bunch more. So with my scissors, I just cut a little bit like this, and because it's got a nice heavy direct thread, it's easy for me to tear it. I've never had that go wrong. It usually tears quite nicely. I remember at first I always was a little bit nervous because if it tears inwards, you're gonna regret that because it's gonna ruin the whole piece of canvas. So I'm happy with that. I have more than enough, maybe even too much, but again, I can always cut that down later. And now on this side, I have more than what I need. So I'm going to take a look. So there's enough there. On this side, I'm going to be able to cut off, let's say, right about here. And again, this is probably a little bit excessive. I have more canvas than what I need, but that's barely too little. Because with pieces this small, you're not going to have another use for it. So they usually end up in the garbage. But as an artist, I'm a natural hoarder, so that will probably hang out in the studio for another 10 years before I figure out to throw it out. Sometimes though, they can make for good straps and stuff, so you might find another use for them. Alright, so my stretcher, you can see when I put it up at an angle like this, it's got a bevel on it, right? So this here, it's not a 90-degree angle. It's got about a 10-degree bevel on it. So we need that to be facing down. I know it's pretty obvious with this style of stretcher, but when you buy the stretcher bars from the art supply store and you put on your own canvas, sometimes you can forget what side the bevel's on, and then when you paint on it, you end up picking up the impression of the bars on the front. which I find quite annoying when I see paintings that have that. Or in some cases, you'll see that artist pick up on the crossbars, which I've done by accident before. Alright, so I'm going to put my stretcher down, again trying to get it sort of centered, right? So make sure that I have enough on this end. It's going to wrap right around. Enough on this end, plenty. And then on my far side, plenty. Near side, lots to work with. Alright, so I'm going to be using this stapler. This is a bit of a brute. You know, it's the action is really stiff, the spring. It's a good little workout for you, but otherwise it can be quite exhausting. I know DeWalt makes a really good stapler that's a lot easier to use than this one. So if you do choose this one, be prepared to work out. Having said that, these things last forever. They're really well made, and it's probably just because they are such heavy duty. And your staples that you choose, you want to make sure that you know the staples that you need. So this is a T50 stapler. Of course, all that information's embossed on the stapler itself. And so when you buy your staples, there's so many different types of staples. So you want to make sure that you have the T50, right? And you also want to make sure that you have the staples that are pointy in their profile. So you can see they're jagged, right? And so that's going to allow them to go into the wood a lot easier. And I ran out of them, but normally I use an 8mm, whereas these ones are 10mm. Not too much of a difference, but they are going to be a little bit excessive, but not a big deal. All right, so when you're doing your canvas, you always want to start in the middle of the widest, right? Rather than here, this is sort of short, so I want my greatest distance, and I want to pull that tight. So I'm going to start at this end. I'm going to approximate where is my center, something like this, and I'm going to put 3 staples in, just because this is going to get pulled on quite a bit. Oh, and I'm out of staples already. So now you guys get the demo on how to change the staples in your stapler. So this is what they look like coming out of the box. And then I just sort of opened up the back side, and they're going to slide up in those rails like such. And then this mounts over top of those rails, push in the pressure, click, and you're good. Most of the time, these things do jam up quite a bit. So there we have my 3 staples. Now I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to pull it. I'm going to pull the canvas towards me. Some people like to use these. These are pliers. They're canvas stretching pliers. I prefer just to use my hands, but these can be, especially with big canvases like this, they can be really useful. And all you do with them, it's something to this effect. This sort of piece wedges there, and you're able to pull it tight. Again, I just use my hands. So I'm going to pull, and you can see I lifted the stretcher a little bit. So I'm going to pull it taut like that. Go to my corners, make sure my corners, I'm not getting any big wrinkles. And you'll be able to see I have sort of a little bit of a hump here, right? Just showing where I've pulled taut between the 2 ends. And again, 3 staples. So I have these 2 ends fastened down. And now I'm going to pull this. This is quite imperative because we don't want to pull it to such a degree that the weave goes like that. But I'm just going to pull it so there's a little bit of a weave going this way, right? We can see what happened there. And then when I spin it around on the other side, it will all equal out. So 1, 2, and 3. And now I'm going to take my stretcher. And I'm lucky I have this nice big table that I get to work on. Otherwise, working down on your knees with these big ones can be a bit of a trial. So now I'm pulling it tight. I don't have to pull it crazy tight to the point where I'm weakening the fabric, because also when I prime this with the gesso, because the gesso is water-based, once it dries, it's going to tighten up the canvas also. So I just need it to be I need it to be snug, but not tight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move around the whole stretcher and slowly move towards my corners. So I'll do a couple here, then I'll go to the opposite side, do a couple there, then over there, then over there. And then I'll sort of follow this pattern. I might lose the pattern, but so long as I'm working pretty consistently towards my corners, it's going to work. All right, so now I'm at my corner, but before I show you about the corner, one thing I also want to note, when you saw me buzzing around, putting in all the staples, you saw me both pull this direction, but at the same time, I was paying attention to the profile, because your profile can get sort of wrinkles in it. So you're pulling predominantly in this direction, but you might also need to sort of pull outwards. So pay attention to that to make sure that you don't get any wrinkles that way. So with my corners, now the corners, they're sort of the area that separates a good stretching from a bad stretching. So I'm going to show you sort of the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. But before that, when deciding what part of the canvas you're going to put your corners on, your folds, you first want to decide whether it's going to be a horizontal or a vertical format. So in this case, I'm going to be working horizontally. So my image is going to go from here, that direction, right? So it's sort of, I'm going to be working on it like this. It's going to be landscape format. So for that reason, I'm going to put my folds at the top. That way, when you see this painting in a gallery, you're seeing this edge that's going to be super nice and clean, and my folds are going to be above and below. Unless you're really tall or really short, you're not going to see them at all. But I'm still going to do them as neatly as I can, again, just so that it's really clean, because we don't want too many distractions from people looking at your art. All right, so my pet peeve, people who do this, they put these folds on the outside, right? So you have this crease here, completely not necessary. If you do this, please don't tell anyone that you've been learning from me. Put your folds on the inside. Again, nice and clean. Now, because I've decided that my folds are going to go here, you want to bring these staples all the way to this corner, right? So you don't have to leave a big gap here with both directions. It's only where you're going to put your fold that you need to leave it a little bit open without the staples. So your folds, I always think of when you go into a hotel room and they do the corners of the beds really nice, so there's just a single seam. We're aiming for that same cleanness. So you're going to take the corner of the canvas and you're going to sort of pull it this direction and then like that. And you'll be able to see that right along here, it's going to sort of tighten up, right? So now I have this really nice corner and I want to pin it down. So I'm going to put a staple in it. I don't want to put the staple too far that direction. Otherwise, when I pull this over, it's going to not be able to move. But I do want it far enough that I can still get this snug piece. So like that, it's going to work good, right? So we can see this is nice and tight. Now the next part, this is the real trick. So you can see if, right, that's on the inside. I want that to stay on the inside. This one, it's going to lay sort of flat like that. So if I just put it like this, we can see that my fold's sort of sticking out, right? But if I can sort of adjust it and I can move this one in until I have it nice and clean right there. Sometimes I give a little bit less just so that on the profile I don't have that bulge. And then again, pulling that tight and lock it in. And you can put a few more, and then this little piece that we didn't get to pull too tight. And you can put as many as you need. This one, the staple sort of buckled a little bit because it had quite a few layers to go through. And there is how you do your corners. All right, so here is my final canvas, and we can see when I tap it like that, it has a little bit of a drum sound. There's enough give. It's not tight enough that I'm worried about my stretcher being sort of, moving too much to where the corner's coming off the wall, something to that effect. My edges, nice and clean, right? We can see the back side, again, pretty clean. You'll note too, I don't put my staples too close together because often whether the painting didn't turn out or I need to roll it up to ship it to be restretched, I more than often I pull my my canvas off the stretchers and I reuse the stretchers multiple times. So the next stage would be to put some gesso on here or rabbit skins glue, whatever your preferred priming material is. And once I do that and sand it down, it's ready to paint on. So stay tuned for the next demo on how to prepare a surface and different surfaces that we use as artists. Have a great day.